Hey, welcome everybody. We are here at the first Libertarian, believe it or not, the first Libertarian Presidential Forum. Yes, for 2024. I am very lucky that I have with me today the one, the only Chrissie Mayr. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so great, Larry. Ready to talk libertarian issues. I'm pumped to be here. There's nowhere else I would rather be.
I love that so much. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, Chrissie, by the way, is an awesome comedian. She is also a host of the Chrissie Mayr podcast and Simpcast, which is a panel show, which comes out like once a week and like women yell about stuff or something, right?
Yeah. We've been compared to The View, but tolerable and like a show you'd want to listen to. So it's exciting. It's high praise.
I like that. That's awesome. So yes, I mean, we have with us 4 amazing candidates who are trying right now to start rocking and rolling. We have with us Mr. Lars Mapstead. We have with us Mr. Chase Oliver. We have with us Mr. Joshua Rodriquez and Mr. Mike Termott. So happy to have all of you here. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Excellent. Now, I want this to be more of a forum. So we're going to ask a question to one of the candidates, have them answer the question, hopefully in about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then have the others also comment back and forth in chat. We will moderate the conversation. So this can be a forum, a back and forth that we can talk about here. We'll start though with each candidate with a 2-minute opening statement, and we'll go in order if we could. We'll start right now if we could with Mr. Mapstead. Please go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thanks, Chrissie, for hosting as well, and all my fellow Libertarian presidential candidates. How many of you have struggled financially to make ends meet at some time or another? How many of you have gotten to the end of the month, run out of money, and had to eat top ramen for days on end? I grew up pretty poor, and in fact, I grew up with no electricity and an outhouse. And even into my early 20s, I was struggling to make ends meet. I discovered the internet, and I had a knack for marketing and computers, and I became a serial entrepreneur. I started many successful businesses, the largest of which was a company called Friend Finder Networks. And together with my partner, we grew that company to over 600 employees and $350 million in annual revenue. As a presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party, I believe that a political party exists to run candidates and win elections. And to that end, I have 3 points. Grow the party, support local candidates, and get fundraising from excited donors. In order to grow the party, I have activated the Lars 24 Challenge. It's where I challenge you to get 1 new registered Libertarian voter. And if we all do that, we can double the size of the party in 1 year. Local candidates are the backbone of the Libertarian Party, and I will campaign alongside our local candidates who are critical to our success. In order to maximize our message of liberty, we need the resources to do that. And so I'm focused on leveraging my expertise in online marketing to help the party fundraise. In fact, I want to put libertarians on the map by winning an electoral vote in 2024, and I have a plan to do just that. I want to help you gain the same success that I did, and I want to bring the same opportunities I found to all Americans. Let's work together to achieve these goals and make the Libertarian Party a force to be reckoned with. Let's show the country that individual liberty, limited government, and free markets are the key to a better future for all Americans. I'm Lars Mapstead. Support me as your presidential candidate, and I will put libertarians on the map in 2024. Thank you.
Wow, nicely done. Right at 2 minutes, Mapstead. Very good. Mr. Oliver, if you would, 2 minutes.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted, but you're making a lot of great points.
I want to say, of course, thank you very much for Larry and Chrissie for hosting this debate forum, rather. I look forward to hearing from the others and really communicating back and forth with libertarians as they ask us questions. Where did I come from? Where are we at? And where are we going to go? I'm a former Democrat who left the Democratic Party because they weren't really an anti-war party. And I was tired of seeing my friends get sent to a war that was based on lies being told by the government. And because of that, I found the Libertarian Party. I have been a libertarian activist for the last 15 years. I've been fighting for a freer and smaller state. And to that, I've run for Congress in the special election to succeed John Lewis, who was a civil rights icon here in the city of Atlanta. And I also just recently ran for the United States Senate in 2022, where I forced a runoff in my state, where I made the duopoly pause and think about themselves for 4 weeks, and then realized that they had better options on the ballot than Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock. Now I'm ready to take the energy that I got from that campaign and move it forward into 2024. I got notice from the Washington Post, Rolling Stone magazine, Vice, NBC, ABC, Fox, basically all the major media outlets, because I shook up the duopoly, and I'm ready to take that energy and that enthusiasm and move it forward into the 2024 campaign. I am somebody who believes in professionalism, energy and enthusiasm, and most importantly, youth. Because if we're going to grow this party, we need to actually start speaking to Gen Z. We need to be making sure that their first vote for president is a libertarian vote for president. Because if we do that, they will look outside the duopoly on every ballot for the rest of their lives. But if we get them stuck in this R&D, we have to win because our side is winning, or we don't want to fight the other side, we're going to lose a whole generation of voters. So I'm ready to get out there and speak to the youth of America. I'll be half the age of Joe Biden, or less actually, on election day. And so I look forward to finding a young voice and a new generation of liberty for all of us. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. That was under 2 minutes. Nice. Mr. Rodriguez, please.
Yep. Thanks for having me. I grew up Christian, so my family worked in a lot of nonprofits, and I think it shaped who I am today. So community service is kind of like built into who I am, and it's something that I want to pass on to my children. I have a bachelor's undergraduate degree in biochemistry, dual major in education, graduate school in chemistry. So I worked in chemical manufacturing, a research scientist destroying chemical weapons for the Army, quantum computing. So I'm a subject matter expert in cryogenics. But when the Parkland shooting happened, it was one of those situations that kind of, touched me in a way where I wanted to start acting and started getting involved. So I participated in my local county's Jefferson County School Safety and Security Task Force. And so I worked with Columbine survivors, professionals, you name it. And we analyze every aspect of school safety. And so longtime participant in my community emergency response team. So FEMA trained, search and rescue, mass casualty events, those sorts of things. But I also been a nonprofit operator for half a decade now, benefiting at-risk youth. And so a lot of the things I do is community-based. So when COVID happened, I was part of the Jefferson County Food Security Task Force. And that task force created the first ever, you call 211, you can find free food now near you 24/7. And so my nonprofit delivered over 5,000 pounds of food in a time of need when it was really needed when they started doing the shutdowns. But also I ran for mayor in 2018. I ran for United States Senate in 22. And so I'm here today to run for president of the United States. And I truly believe that I have the experience and the knowledge to move us forward in a new way. And as a scientist, I care about things like the environment. I care about who we are and where we're going to be headed in relation to science and technology. And so when we look at Gen Z's, yep, thank you.
Excellent. Good. Mr. Maat, please.
Thanks, Larry. We in the Libertarian Party have a huge opportunity in 2024. I think all of us recognize that. Polling data, for example, show that more Americans than ever before are open to the idea of a third party. And for reasons that we as libertarians should well understand, both Democrats and Republicans are dissatisfied with their respective parties, not just because they have crappy leadership, which of course they do, but also because I think there's a growing recognition in the United States that many of our most important problems are the result of bad public policy. I believe that to capitalize on our opportunity, we have to run the right type of campaign. That means learning some tough lessons from our past mistakes. We have to run a campaign that's focused on policy that cleaves hard edges against the other parties, that'll define our brand, that'll make us memorable. I'm running on a platform that does just this, which we call the Gold New Deal, because we believe that we need a new relationship between us and the government that we're willing to tolerate. I also believe that we have to put forward the right type of candidate, one who represents a credible threat to disrupt the usual two-party race, a candidate to whom voters will listen because they believe in someone who could be relevant to the process. I believe I am that candidate. My entire career has been spent in public service and public policy and entrepreneurship. I put forward a platform of the most transformative ideas, but I back those up with credible solutions that speak to the real problems that real Americans are facing. Thanks.
Excellent. Under. You guys are good. I like this. You must have practiced. Very well done. So I do want to go to a question that I have that I think is very important. And many of you kind of touched on it. But I want to direct this to Mr. Oliver, if I could. And the rest of you could please also respond if you like. Do you have a different definition for winning in 2024? Besides just, obviously, I hope whichever one of you is the nominee, obviously, I hope that you become president. That'd be awesome. Reality of it is that's a struggle, but I hope it happens. Do you have, Mr. Oliver, another definition for winning besides actually just winning?
Well, let's talk about what the role of a presidential candidate is beyond trying to win the White House. We are basically the chief brand officer for the party. We're the most visible person that people are going to see when they think about what is a libertarian. Often, today when you ask, are you a libertarian? People will say, you mean like Gary Johnson or like Joe Jorgensen or like other past presidential candidates? That's because we are the most visible people. We need to be somebody who was able to articulate a principled libertarian message, but also translate it into a language that the average voter can understand. I say it's translating the libertarian language into, something that resembles English, because, a lot of times we get stuck in our policy selves and we're not really communicating to the average voter in that way that they understand. So that's something I think we need to make sure that we're doing as a candidate. And if we want to talk about what other metrics of victory there are, I want to get out there and support local candidates, because there are a lot of winnable races across the country. And if I'm traveling across the country, it's those targeting winnable races that I want to make sure that I'm shining a spotlight onto. I want to make sure that I'm bringing as much press and media spotlight as I can to those folks who can win and who can really make a difference at the local level and in the state house level, because we have had those victories in the past and we can have more of those victories in the future. But it does require somebody who's running in 2024 to have the energy to travel. And I've already been to 11 states and counting. I will be in several more over the coming weeks. And I'm ready to speak to voters. And I think that's what we have to do.
But do you have a definition? If you don't, it's okay. I see where you're going, what you want to achieve. Is there a definition? Do you say, well, if 8 people won, that becomes a win. If I get X percent, that becomes a win.
Let's put the metrics down. Are we going to have increased party membership? Are we going to have increased positive brand awareness? And are we going to have increased libertarians winning across the country? That is a metric of victory in 2024 that I think any candidate should be looking for.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I found it interesting when Hillary and Trump are running for president, right? We look at the state of Utah. That actually went to a third-party candidate. They won the whole entire state. So when you look at places like Georgia and New York, it's definitely very possible to win. But like what Chase was saying, we can't do it alone. And so we can all go in this moving forward and support each other as a libertarian candidate and capture Gen Z votes and those sorts of things. But we really need to start building the team, right? So connecting with each and every state level libertarian organization and really promoting each other in a different type of way. I think a good definition would just be someone that wins and is action oriented. Oftentimes we can see here and talk about a lot of things, but action and getting the task done is most important.
Mr. Maat, tell me, how do you feel about that?
I feel not too bad about that, but not too good about that either. The answer to the question is we have to make a presidential debate that's nationally televised. I think that's absolutely critical. To do that, we'll have to get a certain amount of success in early polls. That means spending money in a certain way, bold, loud, and early, namely. We need the poll numbers to get up to get into those early debates. We don't know what those are going to look like at this point. To be honest, at this point, we don't even know whether debates will be held, but I think that someone will step up to the plate and organize those. That's where we really have an opportunity to build our brand. Chase is right. We are the chief brand officer, and you only have to look at the past 2 or 3 cycles to see the missed opportunities that we've had. We need to be out there with policies that speak to people, but that differentiate us completely from the other parties. Our job is not to find common ground with the other party's politicians. It's to find common ground with other parties' voters and to differentiate us from the other politicians.
So hold on. Let me then say, are you saying that if we get the debate, then that's a victory? Like that's also a win. It's another form of victory, getting in the debates.
Absolutely. And it'll catapult us into greater types of victory, including, I think, what Lars is about to talk about is this terrific idea that I think we all share of getting us literally on the map.
Speaking of that, he just brought it up there. Lars.
Yeah.
Mr.
Wow,
Mapstead.
what a setup.
Get us on the map.
Thanks for teeing that up for me. Yeah. So exactly. I think that one of the big things that we can do to have a win this election season is to win an electoral vote. And I have done a lot of studying on which states are prime opportunities for us to push. And I looked at Nebraska and I looked at Maine because both those split up their electoral vote.
Right.
And as a marketer, you know, I look how you can spend the most money you have for the greatest bang for the buck kind of a thing. And so what I've discovered is there's a few states that have around 600,000 voters representing an electoral vote, and that being Nebraska and Maine and a couple other ones actually too. And then I kind of looked at what libertarians had done in those states, how they had fared. And so I've kind of come up with the 2nd Congressional District of Maine as a primary target, unless somebody comes up with, you know, a better plan. But most of the people live in a few cities there. And so we can really target our financial resources at touching those people over and over again with our message. And hopefully we can, you know, push them over the edge and win an electoral vote in 2024. And then additionally, I think some other metrics that would be, you know, good is kind of what I talked about in my opening statement, which is we need fundraising. We need the resources to carry our message. If we're not fundraising, we're not carrying the message to anybody, right? And
do you have a dollar amount in your head, Lars, that you think is the minimum that someone should be raising? Do you have a feeling?
Well, you know, I'd love to put that mark at $5 million because that's sort of the high mark that we had before, and I'd like to see us try to achieve that or even go over that amount of money, right? And I think it's possible. We just need to get our message out there better, and we need to have a good team of people, which I'm putting together to help really push social media to get our message out as far as we can. You know, I'm a kind of an expert in social.
Lars, let me push on to Chase. Professor Chase had his hand up. Mr. Oliver, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so 2 quick points I wanted to make. Talking about getting into the debates, we actually have a very rare opportunity as libertarians in this next election because the RNC has left the Commission on Presidential Debates. So we as libertarians really need to be going to the Republicans and saying, let's pressure the Democrat to get off that stage as well. And let's join you on stage with the League of Women Voters. And let's have a real debate. And if the Democrats want to come on board, they can do that. And I think we can apply that pressure and actually reach out and try to break down the Commission on Presidential Debates.
Chase, you were in the debates last time and you knocked it out of the park. Did you see, what value did you see from that?
Well, you know, debates absolutely give you the name value. You know, my name recognition shot up instantly once I debated Senator Warnock. And it does feel really good for us to get on stage and actually challenge the duopoly on stage face to face. I wish it had been face to face, but my Republican opponent was too cowardly to get on stage with a Libertarian. I think he was scared to talk policy. But, you know, I was ready, willing, and able to get on a debate stage with a duopoly. And I think that is something we should aspire to, because if we can do that, the Libertarian Party is really going to break through. It's what broke Ross Perot through in 1992. And we can have those same kind of successes.
Joshua, I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez, they've been talking about raising money. I mean, do you think that's you haven't really brought that up in yours. Do you think that's a big deal or no?
No, not really. I think you have the power of social media, and young people are so in tune to what's going on in the world today. It's fairly easy to reach them this day and age. I think if we're boots on the ground and we're doing our conference calls with libertarian organizations state by state, we could still do that via web conference. You're still going to need a war chest to go state to state, and then each candidate's going to have like their own special opinion on what state they want to visit and what community events they're going to organize. And so that does have a certain level of fundraising. And I think most libertarian candidates will have a war chest of around $3 million. And so a $5 million war chest would just be great. it would give that candidate the full amount of leverage to go to state by state and meet with constituents.
So, Mr. Mapstead, you're the one who talked about doing social media. Is Joshua right here? Is social media good?
Yeah, social media is excellent, but in order to amplify your voice on social media, ad spend is critical. I've spent literally probably more than $100 million on ad spend in my life. So it's, you know, it was my career for a long time. I know how to amplify a message and really get it out there. And so, yeah, I would use that money to basically get our message out to as many people as possible. And part of that is using that money to recruit new members to the Libertarian Party and grow our party, because our party is kind of stagnant at the moment. And we really need to, like, you know, get the ball out there. And that's why I've activated this Lars 24 challenge. It's really not a hard ask to get people to get one new registered Libertarian voter if they're already a registered Libertarian voter. And if we do that simple task, we can double the size of the party.
I think we should combine both Lars's idea and Joshua's, because the gears are turning for me. I'm picturing like a league of Libertarian TikTokers that go viral, and then we can have like the best of both worlds. I'm just, you know, I am thinking of dance moves as we speak. So
I love it. So Chrissy, why don't you take over and why don't you ask your question? Thank you guys for that. It was 10 minutes. We spent a good time on that. Chrissy, go ahead and take your next question.
Should I direct it to anyone in particular, or just, well, everyone's going to answer it. So
how about to Mr. Rodriguez? I gave my last to Mr. Oliver. Go to Mr. Rodriguez.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez. Yeah, a lot of you have been saying really fantastic points. As someone kind of from the outside, I think party awareness is probably the biggest issue. I'm amazed at how many people I talk to who still like don't even know what it means to be a libertarian. And then you ask them a few questions and talk to them about how they felt about the lockdowns, and you're like, oh, obviously this person's a libertarian. So I almost feel like, God, everyone should just work together until we can get enough notoriety that someone can actually, you know, really run and have a chance. I guess my question would be, I feel like from the outside, libertarians have a real issue with trying to connect to the average person. Because even right now, I'm looking in the chat, people are going, oh, you know, when I hear the phrase libertarianism, I think of liberals. And so I just feel like so many people are need to just know what it means to be a libertarian, that it's okay to kind of like identify as one. And, you know, we're working up against such, you know, decades of the duopoly and, of course, their huge bankroll. So I guess my question is, this is so long-winded. How can libertarians kind of reach the average person while capitalizing off the concerns brought up by the lockdowns? Because I think the lockdowns is like could be a big W for libertarians in the future. Like, I don't think we should let go of that, because the lockdowns got people fired up. And so I guess my question would be, do you think you can kind of take the concerns from the lockdown to help bring libertarianism kind of to the average person? Okay, let's start with Josh.
It's a good question. I think most millennials are actually trending liberal. Gen Zs right now are following the trend towards more conservative. So if you say libertarian, liberal, that's fine with me. But just to define it, it's libertarian liberty, and that's just how it should be stated. And so educating the community about that, it's going to be tricky. But when you look at the lockdowns in particular, I was fairly active in my community. I met with people and handing them food and supplies. It was absolutely heartbreaking. Having a woman come ask me if they have any feminine products that I have, or toilet paper, or a young person pulling over saying, geez, do you have water? It really impacted me in a different way. And so when you look at the hospitals, though, and what was necessary to gear us up towards a solution, and as a scientist, we have to be aware of what we should be considering appropriate as far as vaccines, those sorts of things. And so we know a lot of people are getting hurt by vaccines. Whether we want to believe it or not is going to be tricky, but the news media is very in tune with this. And then you have the FDA commingling with pharmaceutical companies. And so when you look at lockdowns, there's a lot of steps associated with saying a lockdown, abolishing the FDA, lobbyists associated with pharmaceutical companies, fundraising efforts with politicians. And so lockdowns are a scary thing, but when you look at our community and our businesses, everyone got hurt. And so if we say we're going to move forward in a different way, and we have that plan associated with how to do it, I think people are going to listen. And so reaching those people, again, through social media, those sorts of things is going to be important. I'm not really sure if it's the most highlighted topic to reach the community with. Lars might want to do ad spends, and will vaccines and lockdowns be associated with that? I'm not really sure. But we have a lot of work to do. And so education and defining libertarianism is definitely important.
Chrissy, if I may, I think that one of the reasons why the issue that you brought up is so important is because it's emblematic of how a lot of Americans feel about the government in so many other areas. Going forward, some of the biggest risks that we face going forward are risks of our government misplaying the issue. We have climate change going on, for example. Do you trust your federal government to handle climate change? Or do you expect our government will impose industrial policy on us, screw up our economy, shut down certain aspects, force regulations on other aspects of our economy, trying to figure out what to do, and it costs us $1 trillion again, and we're right back in the same soup as we were over COVID-related shutdowns? Do you trust the federal government to handle China? China presents such a huge risk to us, not just because of the Chinese government, because of the silly ways our government reacts to it. You look at our economy, you look at our war machine, you look at all of the resources that our federal government spends incorrectly. The risks that we face are from our government. And I think people are awakening to that in a way that they never were aware before. So I think it's very important that we make the point that the management of the situation under COVID was badly handled, and that you don't want a Republican or a Democrat in charge when facing the next crisis.
Yeah, definitely. Lars?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I have been doing a lot of memes. It's a new thing to me, but it's what I've been doing a lot of for the last 6 or 9 months. And in fact, this summer, I was able to reach 17 million people using my memes on Facebook. And the message that I've been using, I've been doing a lot of different messaging. It's been all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's vaccines, sometimes it's lockdowns. But for a lot of people, I think really it comes down to the economy. It's the economy stupid. And, I always say that people vote with their wallets, that if they're being affected financially, that is the number one thing that people care about. If they're not able to put food on the table, they're not able to put gas in their car, their eggs are $10 for a thing of eggs. So I think the economy is a critical piece that I'll be focusing on. In fact, one of the big memes that went viral was about a man who he had built a house and he was paying more property tax each year than the price he paid originally to build his house. And that went crazy, because people feel oppressed by the government. And the thing is that it's the local government that really kind of it touches your life on a day-to-day basis, right? When people are pissed off at the government, it's usually the water department or the garbage or, some local thing that's really pissed them off. The only thing that they really care about on the federal government is how much money it's stealing out of their pockets, right? And so I want to focus just on all those messages that seem to be resonating. And I'm really working on figuring out all those messages that work. And I'm going to be pushing those messages hard with the ad campaigns that I'll be running.
Yeah, that makes sense. Take whatever everyone's biggest issue is and be like, okay, and here's how libertarians can help you with that, basically. Just bring it down to their level. Chase, did you feel like you answered this question, or did you chime in?
I'd love to get a chance to answer it. Actually, you asked how are we going to communicate to the average person and also use the lockdowns for our political gain. Well, the truth is we can go into rooms of people who are not used to hearing the libertarian message. I did that when I ran for Congress in the bluest district in the Southeast. I was often the only liberty voice in a room full of Democrats, running against 5 of them and a guy who was to the left of the Democrats. And I was happy to provide that voice. But what are we going to talk about? The issues that are going to be important that are remaining from the lockdowns is, of course, inflation, as Lars mentioned, because it is the economy all the time. That is what's on top of people's minds. But the other issue that we can really harness and help lead on is on education freedom, because we saw that the lockdowns provided a great opportunity for us to see what a farce a lot of the government school systems are. And we're actually able to talk about decentralizing and breaking down this government school structure because people are sick and tired of seeing what happened to their kids when they were locked down. Kids lost an entire year plus of education because we were teaching via Zoom to a test that was a terrible curriculum that wasn't even really working in a classroom, much less on a screen like we're on right now. And so I think if we're going to harness the energy that came from the lockdowns as we're removing lockdowns, we need to remember that education is the biggest outlier and the biggest thing that is going to be the ultimate side effect from this in addition to the economy. And those are the things we're going to have to talk about. And I'm ready to go in rooms full of people who have never heard that from a libertarian who are ready to hear it now because they're woken up to the issues.
Yeah, I think more people are libertarian curious than they realize. So it's all about reaching them. You're muted, Larry. Now you're muted.
I said they're lie curious.
Yes,
Yes.
curious.
They're lie curious. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Could I step in for a second, Chrissy, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
We're talking about connecting, and you brought up to the average person. The thing you brought up was schools, which Mr. Oliver, that hits home, absolutely. And then Mr. Maat, you brought up the idea of the economy, hits home completely. Will Democrats, Republicans be talking about that? Or in other words, are we just going to be able to talk about it and we'll be the only ones talking? Or are we going to have a different way of talking about it? Which one were you talking about, Mr. Maat?
We're going to have a different way of talking about it. And I think the good news here is that Republicans and Democrats have been merging together for a couple of decades, and it won't be hard to differentiate ourselves from them. Neither one is fiscally conservative anymore. They both buy into spending all kinds of money, whereas we need to be the ones out there talking about capping spending. They're the ones out there who they may complain from time to time about inflation, but they're both uber supportive of the Federal Reserve System. We need to be the ones out there talking about ending the Fed. I think, as everybody knows, I've got a 3-point plan on my website to do just that, starting with taking away the Fed's monetary policy in a discretionary fashion and replacing it with a rules-based system. We can all have a food fight about what we want that rule to be. But the bottom line is the Fed has to go, and no other party is going to be talking about that. No other party is.
By the way, guys, if I could 1 second, if anyone's watching, all the websites are in the description. If you want to head to any of the candidates' websites, they're in the description. Please go check them out. I'm sorry. So let me push that off. If I could to Mr. Oliver. You talked about schools. Are we going to be the only ones talking about school choice? I mean, Republicans talk about it all the time, or do we have a different way of talking about it?
Well, we can be more bold and principled when we talk about it, and we can actually walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. Here in Georgia, actually, last year, we had a school choice bill that was up, and the Speaker of the House actually, he blocked it. He pigeonholed it because he was upset that Corey DeAngelis sent out some flyers encouraging some of the maybe weaker supporting Republicans to get in line with their platform of education choice. And because of that, he got offended and decided to pigeonhole the bill. And instead, his educational priority was banning trans students from playing in high school sports, of which they had not identified one student who actually did that. So it was a solution looking for a problem, which is often what government does. And so if we're going to be talking about education, we need to be separating ourselves from the Republicans by saying when we actually get in office, we're not just going to talk about it. We're actually going to do it, just like we do with Democrats on immigration reform or on criminal justice reform. We have to be bold enough to say these people have promised these things to you for generations. They have lied to you. We are actually here to be bold and actually fight the good fight and stand up for a principled position. That's how we can differentiate.
I get it. I want to give Mr. Mapstead and Mr. Rodriquez a part to step in if either one of them want to. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, I'll jump in there. So, yeah, the message that we have to get across is I've been doing these memes on Facebook and I've been targeting the Republicans, and I've taken a page off of Spike Cohen's playbook, sort of, so to speak. And I've been calling these people out because essentially the duopoly, they're just talking heads. They say whatever they need to say in order to get elected. And oftentimes it's half truths, it's a behind the scenes stuff. And so as an example, Biden has been constantly talking about how he's got unemployment to record lows, and that, America is just super happy with the economy because everything's going great right now under his watch. Right. And literally you can go to the Fed and you can look at the numbers that they have for the labor force, the people in the labor force, the people that are actually in it. And we're at 40-year lows. right? That does not speak to me of a country that is, firing on all cylinders and, really doing well. We need to get everybody working again. We need to get people off of the social system and get the productivity of America back up, because when the productivity of America is up, everybody gets lifted up. When everyone is working, everyone gets lifted up, because it just lifts the GDP of America, and all of us are better off. And so we need to provide.
So I got to cut you off. We're going way long on this one. Mr. Rodriguez, do you want to say anything on this, or should I move to the next question?
I'll be really quick. This is a very contentious topic for communities. We talked a lot about like where does the issues really lie. It's with our towns and cities and counties, and so I would relate this to equivalent to talking about abortion or safe injection sites. That's how contentious it is in our communities. And so when you look at taking a kid and putting them into a different system, an alternative public education system, really that's a dollar sign being removed from that standard public school. And so you're really talking about county schools suing charter schools for millions of dollars, even going as far as sending lawyers to appeal decisions. And so what's happening right now, they know they're going to lose, but they're trying to slow that process of school choice. And so there's big fights over school buses. We have regional transportation districts in our communities where politicians are actually taking fast transit bus routes so kids can't go to public charter schools. And so when we talk about these issues, there's a lot of change that needs to happen.
Great, guys. We're a little bit long on that, so I'm going to cut the next one short by a little bit. This question goes directly to Mr. Maat, and I'm going to steal Lars's $5 million. In this case, I just stole his money. Mr. Maat, you have won the nomination. You raised $5 million. How do you spend it?
You spend it fast and loud. You spend it in a way that differentiates yourself from everybody else. And it has to be spent very quickly. The object of the game is not to say, well, I got $5 million and I got 5 months. I'm going to spend $1 million a month. That's not how this works. You need to spend it as quickly as possible. If you have $250,000 in your bank account, you're doing something wrong. You got to spend that sucker by 5 p.m. The point is to get a snowball effect. Money makes money. So you need to be out there differentiating and branding. And to the point that we've been discussing, pushing on social media, of course, the two have to work hand in hand, right? But it has to be spent quickly, and it has to be very, very loud. As I mentioned before, the name of the game is to build our brand, not only for the objective of raising more money and getting higher in the polls and getting into the debates. There's that snowball. But also because we are responsible for building the brand for the benefit of the down ballot candidates. In the past, our presidential nominees have not done everything they could to help local candidates in terms of differentiating us from the other parties. That's very important.
Okay, Lars, you were the $5 million, Mr. Mapstead. Please tell us, how do you spend the $5 million?
Yeah, I agree actually with Mike on this one. We got to spend the money as quickly as possible. The thing is that the more you spend, the more you have ability to raise even more funds, right? So like he said, it's a snowball thing. And that's a metric that is talked about, on TV, on the talking heads, is like this candidate raised $12 million. This candidate, that's a metric of success that the media wants to see. So the more that the Libertarian Party can raise, the more of a force we are to be reckoned with. And so that is like one of my number one goals, is just to raise as much money as we possibly can so that we are viable. Look, we're going to be working for not only this election, but future elections, right? Mm-hmm. If we can win this electoral vote, if we can raise a lot of money, we can help out the next generation of people coming after us to win the next set of elections. We need to be building our party. That's what we need to be doing. And that's what I would be focusing my whole presidential campaign on, is building our party so that we can have success for more people down the road.
Mr. Oliver, what do you think about that? What are you going to do with your $5 million when you win?
Well, I agree with a lot of what they're saying. First off, the main spending that you're going to be doing is to increase brand awareness of the candidate and the party, because that is how you grow the structure and the framework for the future. And you're right, spend it fast, spend it wisely, spend it with accountability. First off, we are libertarians. We do preach the message of fiscal responsibility. So we're going to want to make sure that whatever we're doing it pretty transparently and openly, and not just shifting money around. Like, that's one of the first things we want to do. We want to be responsible with our money. But with that money, we want to make sure that we're using, like I said, every dollar to increase our brand awareness, and especially with Gen Z. We need to be going on college campuses and speaking to students right here, right now, who are sick and tired of seeing that their student loans are going to basically strap them down so they'll never have a mortgage, much less a home for their entire life. We need to be talking to these young people about what the job prospects are going to look like for the future if we can get government out of the way of the free market and actually explode the amount of prosperity and jobs we can create. What can we do with a balanced budget? Because the last time we had it in this country, we had broad growth of the middle class and prosperity. Those two things are not unrelated, but we need to be going out and speaking that message loud and clear. And like I said, really targeting it towards the next generation of voters. Gen Z at this time are voting in higher numbers than my generation millennials did at this same time,
Wow.
higher than Gen X did.
Wow.
So we need to be going for it right now to this next generation. We cannot afford to lose them.
Great. Mr. Rodriguez, what do you do with your
Yeah,
$5
thank
million
you.
when you get it?
Yeah, I'm gonna be visiting college campuses, setting up forums, working with those community organizations. But I also want to do those smaller community meetings where people are really talking about the issues, like how to solve gun violence in their community. Really trying to understand the issues. As we get ready for President of the United States, I need to be prepared and make sure that I understand how to approach things and state by state, community by community. I think one of the bigger things we need to realize is, yeah, Gen Zs are voting in higher numbers, and so we have to make sure that we're getting those kids, those young people ready. We have a huge deficit, trillions of dollars. And so we need to start reaching them in a different way. We know that they don't want war. We know they care about the environment. We know what we have to do. And so we really have to teach, libertarianism, how to define that and start really going hard with brand awareness.
There we go. So anyone else want to touch this $5 million piece, or can we move on?
I'm gonna buy a hot tub with my $5 million.
I like
I'm going
that.
to your house.
Big enough
If
to
we're all
fit
hanging out with you,
all the
that's it.
candidates. Yeah, that's how
That's it.
we'll make.
And you're going to
Holland.
have to do a podcast from it, Chrissy. It's going to be the
Of
Chrissy,
course.
what, I don't know,
Yeah.
the Tubcast? I don't know
It'll
what
be
we're
a
going to call it.
Tubcast. Yeah, Libertubians. I don't know. We'll think of
Ooh,
something.
Libertubians. So good. We're all going to
Super
become
chat. Yeah.
Libertubians.
It may be
I
off
love it.
brand.
We gotta brand it. Hey.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm glad we cut that one short because we went low on the last one. Christy, you want to pick up the next question if you would?
Yes. Okay. This will be, I guess I'll start with Lars, who hasn't answered a question first yet.
You can go to Mr. Mapstead if you want, sure.
Okay. In the wake of Memphis and other high-profile police abuse cases, what should be our recommended policy response? Do you feel like maybe this isn't that big of a problem, and is it kind of been, overblown by inflammatory media, as far as, police brutality and shooting and kind of all of that goes?
Yeah, it's no, I think it's a serious problem across America that the policing has kind of gotten out of control. There's obviously good police officers, but there's also a lot of bad police officers and people in power that shouldn't be there. And I think that it's a real libertarian message, right? It's the authoritarian state oppressing the individual, right? And it's clear that the police in some areas are much more oppressive than other areas, and so it's definitely something that we have to look at. Obviously, ending qualified immunity, all the libertarian talking points that we have, ending the war on drugs would make a huge move to getting rid of the police state. A vast majority of the police state is just enforcing drug laws, which are just abysmal, and they serve no purpose. We've been doing a war against drugs for 50 years, and there's more people doing drugs today than there ever has been before. It's just completely failed. Prohibition doesn't work. It doesn't work on people. It doesn't work on guns. It doesn't work on drugs. We need to just end prohibition altogether, and that will get rid of a lot of the police state problems that we have right now.
Chrissy, if I may, the problem that we face is actually, in my view, bigger than merely the war on drugs. And the war on drugs is an insanely counterproductive policy, so don't misread me. Anytime you create black markets, you cause havoc, both in terms of crime and health in this case. But as a recently retired police officer after 11 years on the streets, I can tell you that we have a police culture problem. we are going in the right direction. I saw progress even in the relatively brief 11 years that I served, but we have a problem nonetheless. I believe that courts are far too deferential to police officers, and that is the big reason why we need to give up qualified immunity, not because it affects so many cases, but because it can speak to how we want police culture to evolve. Changing police culture is going to take a long time. It's going to require a lot of patience, but there are things that we can do right away to accelerate that process. And I believe that replacing qualified immunity with requirements that police officers be bonded by private sector liability insurance is a big step in the right direction. If police officers feel the pinch in terms of their premium rates, it'll be an extra incentive to keep Leo in place. I think that we need to make police much more like other businesses in the United States, including other high liability industries like surgeons, for example. Surgeons don't have qualified immunity where we say, well, if I made a mistake, suck it up. I didn't mean to. That's not how it works. Doctors are required to get liability insurance to stay in business. Malpractice insurance is what they call it. We need a form of malpractice insurance in police work as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd love to jump in there on that because I agree with you that police need liability insurance. What you do when you have liability insurance is you remove the possibility of a bad cop being moved from place to place. Eventually, he's going to be priced out of the industry because if he does bad work, he's going to get priced out by the insurance industry. So yes, absolutely, that will get bad cops off the streets in addition to unqualified immunity, 100%. And there is still major law enforcement issues going on in this country. Look no further than the city of Atlanta, where they are looking to tear down tons of green space to build a giant compound to teach militarized police tactics to be able to suppress the people when they're looking to protest. I was actually tear gassed by the Atlanta Police Department in the summer of 2020 for going out and protesting against for justice reform, rather. And while they were corralling and tear gassing the peaceful protesters, there were looters destroying our city. And that's really where law enforcement should have been putting their focus during that time instead of going after the peaceful people who just wanted to hold law enforcement accountable. I am going to be somebody who loud and clear will stand up for people like what we've seen in Memphis is just tragic. It was basically a group thug killing. It was like a street gang beating somebody to death in the streets. And just because they have a badge on their chest and they say they're sworn to protect the citizens does not escape them from that responsibility. They should be held liable. And we should be shouting that loud and clear. And you're right. We should be changing the culture in this country from just deferring and courts from just deferring to what the police say, because now we're seeing videos all over the country that actually refute what the police say. And if that's happening now, how many times has that happened in the past that before these cameras were everywhere?
Joshua?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I would just like to start out by saying those who are watching, public safety is absolutely important. And so when we look at police alternatives, one of my goals is to abolish the municipal police department. A mayor should never have full control over a police department. And so one of the alternatives is creating a police agency at the state level. Let them control police. Police are only there to investigate. They're not there to stop crimes. They only show up to them. And so your best defense is your Second Amendment right to bear arms. That's your responsibility to do that. We can't just rely on law enforcement. And so when we think about changes in our community, it's really about abolishing the police department.
Agreed.
I'm just
Well, there we
okay.
go.
Okay, I think I have a follow-up mini question, and anybody can answer this. I live in Westchester, and I'm in New York City like at least once a week. And the last time I checked in on some of my cop friends, like I got the sense, especially after the summer of love, that many of them are kind of like afraid to do their jobs, and they don't want to look a certain way. Everyone's got a camera. Do you guys think that what you're proposing in lieu of the qualified immunity? Do you think that will help with that issue or that sort of like trepidation that some of these officers have?
Over time, Chrissy, but it's going to take a while. Right now, police officers are very leery of the idea of giving up qualified immunity. But if given time, they will come to understand that making their business more like other industries means that the good ones will make more money, the bad ones will be rooted out, the mediocre will make less money. and it'll be good for everyone. As far as concentrating power at the state level, I could not disagree more. I don't want police controlled all at the state level. It has to be as decentralized as possible. What we find is that when a police department goes bad, sometimes it has to be replaced lock, stock, and barrel. We need more competition for who provides those police services at the most granular level possible. I shudder to think what would happen if the state in which I live had a bad state police department and they ran the entire state, and now I got to find a way to replace them. That makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck.
I'd love to say this. We're talking about individual officers in trepidation about doing their job. The truth is that if they want to actually have a safer time on the beat, increasing community trust is how they do that. If you don't have the community's trust, you have a much more dangerous time being a police officer. And so ending qualified immunity, creating liability insurance programs, having body cams on will increase that community trust. People will more likely call the police if they trust them. They're not doing that right now because they are fearful of the police. Go to communities in cities all across this country, and people are fearful of the police for good reason right now because they do not trust them. If you want to regain that trust, you have to be willing to extend a hand. And that's the message that we have to be giving to officers. You have to be giving up this qualified immunity to create community trust so that you can be safe and that people can feel comfortable knowing that what you're doing is the right thing as opposed to just being shielded from legal liability. That is what's going to help create more trust between communities and police, I think.
Yeah, and get that respect back. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in there. So one of the things that I saw that really caught my attention was this idea of how many times people interact with the police. That the more times that people interact with police, the more likely there is to be a bad situation that occurs, right? And so I feel like a lot of the laws that we have don't really need to exist. That they're just there to like gather revenue or to, cause people to, have harm. And so I feel like if we reduce the amount of times that people have interaction with police, we're going to have a much less chance of people getting, beaten down and murdered by our own police state. And I'm not a fan for the state police either. I feel like police are fine, but we just have to like get back to, people that are working in our police departments that have some morals and have some good judgment and really care about the community. That's where we need to get to, not people that are like angry and pissed off or have a axe to grind against different groups of people. We need to have people that are serving the community. That's what a police officer is serving the community to help maintain the peace, right? But not at the expense of your liberties and the authoritarian state.
Yeah.
So if I could jump in here, I want to move on to the next topic. And I've been looking at the chat while we're talking, and there's been a bunch of different questions. Some people actually sent some questions in ahead of the time. I'm going to ask a generic question that kind of encompasses many of what people are thinking. I'm going to start us with Mr. Oliver, if I could. You know, and we all know here that there has been a lot of infighting in the Libertarian Party recently, a lot. And generally speaking, whoever's going to get the nomination is going to have to probably somehow unite all the liberty movement together to get behind them to move forward and have some impact, or maybe not. Mr. Oliver, how would you handle that? Uniting people, or would you say we don't have to unite them? It's not required.
Well, I want to be frank and say that I will not intend to be the candidate of one caucus or another caucus. I think that we need to be a candidate for the entire party. That means broadly representing the interests of the entire party. I don't think we can afford to leave activism on the table. We have to be coming together to fight the state, and I'm ready to do that. I've been traveling across the country, and I have not been asking caucus affiliations of the people I've been speaking to. It just so happens that I've been speaking to, and my message has been resonating with people all across the spectrum. I think that's what any 2024 candidate is going to have to be doing, is not displaying one party wing interest or another. In fact, the further I can stay away from the infighting within this party as a candidate for president, I think that's the better for us, because our job is not to contribute to the infighting. Our job is to provide a better way forward, a better path forward, a message that is broadly positive, and you don't get that with infighting. So I can disagree with individual members on certain things or one thing or the other, or I can say, oh, the vice chair of whatever. that doesn't really matter to the average voter. The average voter does not know who's in charge of the LNC. They don't know who's in charge of the state affiliates. They just know who the candidates are. The candidates are who pushes the messaging. And I think if we're going to put a unifying message out there, that's something that can really go forward. But I don't want to see us infighting. I think that we've wasted far too much time, far too much energy over who controls the inner workings of a party that most people don't understand what it is. So if we're going to be fighting for votes and for voters, we don't have time to be fighting with other libertarians. We have to be fighting the Republican and Democratic message and breaking through the two-party static. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I hope everybody here will be doing.
Larry, if I may,
please.
That's not the answer to the question. The answer to the question is, how are you going to unify the party? And the answer is that you have to understand what the various interests in this party are. There are many people in this party on the right and on the left who have been disappointed with the way campaigns have been run in the past. That's true. Let that sink in. This is not unimportant, right? We cannot run away from the idea that people feel differently throughout our party. This is why the team that I have put together represents all of the party. We have people on our team, both in terms of paid people and team advisors who are on the Mises caucus. We have people who are not in the Mises caucus. The one thing that we do not put up with on our team is people who are anti-Mises or anti-un-Mises, right? I participate, in fact, this past weekend, I had fantastic conversations with the boards of the other caucuses as well. I'm a big believer in the classical liberal caucus and the radical caucus as well. They've had very, very thoughtful conversations about a big issue that's been going on in our party, the Rage Against the War Machine program that's going to be held in Washington on Sunday. I encourage libertarians within driving distance to be there. My campaign is a sponsor, and there have been issues that have come up about that organization.
We've been fighting about that even, Mike. We've been fighting about that too.
Yeah, we've been fighting about that. But, we wound up in a better place than we were a couple weeks ago. And now I think everyone should be fairly confident that we're going to have a great event and that the vast majority of speakers, if not everyone, there's no guarantees, right? But the vast majority of speakers are going to be on point and agreeing with us and our anti-war message. So I'm very, very excited about that. And I plan to be there myself. So I don't think that we're going to solve these problems by putting our head in the sand. We need to recognize that we need to run campaigns that listen to all the pieces of the party and that react to those and that represent the interests of everyone in our Libertarian Party.
Okay. Mr. Mapstead, do you want to touch this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we already have two parties that fight left and right all the time. And I think that the Libertarian Party doesn't have time to fight the left and right agenda. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to fight the state. I'm here to reduce government in your life. And that's something that the other two parties don't have. And inside our own party, the left and the right are fighting each other. And it's like, we need to stop that stuff. We need to focus on there's only so much time in the day to fight. And if you're fighting each other, you're not fighting the state and you're letting the state get bigger. And we don't want that. Like, we want the state to be reduced at all cost. And that's my goal. And so I'm not in the party wars, the inner party wars, the caucus wars. I just want to end the state as much as possible. And I'm not going to get bogged down by the left-right debate that's going on inside the party.
That's a great t-shirt slogan. If we're fighting each other, we can't fight the state.
There we go.
Turn into it like
that.
bathing suits or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
We
Rodriguez.
have to unite I'm a big believer that we have to unite this party, and that's why we're running the type of campaign that we are. I think that we need to realize we have various parts and we need to bring them all together.
Mr. Rodriguez, give me your 2 cents
I
on
would
this.
just simply say politics is a pretty dirty business. And so politicians are always going to be running into these sorts of issues. And I think when you have somebody, no matter who they are, what their background is, or what the fake news media says about them, if they're going to put work in, let's get to work.
Well, I gotta back up Mike on this one here. Mike answered the question. I feel like the other three didn't really answer it. I feel like you guys just said we shouldn't, let's not, we shouldn't, let's not. When I think some people in the party are going to say, no, Lars, you got to pick a side. No, Mr. Oliver, you got to pick a side. Or they're going to push us into this, right? To try to do this, and we have to handle it. So
hey,
go ahead, Mr. Oliver, please.
People have tried to push me into being one candidate or the other, being the anti-Mises candidate or being the whatever. I'm not interested in doing that. If that is what you were looking for, if you were looking for a candidate who's going to spend their time fighting the infight, I'm not your candidate. I'm a candidate who's looking to speak to voters outside of it. Because, for instance, I ran into a voter who was super socially conservative, very anti-gay. I'm LGBT. And I, at the end of the day, said, listen, if you don't ask the government to push that on me, I'm going to live my life as I wish, and I'm not going to ask the government to push that on you. We are both libertarians in that point. You're a conservative libertarian. I might not be as conservative as you. But that's the message we have to be doing the average voter. The infight, you're right. We have to heal these divides. And the way you do that is by treating people with respect. When I go to conventions and when I speak to libertarians, my hand is extended regardless of where they come from or what caucus they roll with, because I want to hear from them. I want to communicate with them. Iron sharpens iron. It is okay to have discourse within the party. But what we can't do is let that become a detriment to the movement. And we can't be trying to make hay out of fighting with each other, because that's not going to work. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to come together.
Mr. Mapstead, do you want to touch that?
Yeah, so far, I've talked to people in lots of various caucuses and had good conversations with people in various caucuses. And so far, my messaging doesn't seem to piss anybody off. So far, the messaging that I'm putting forward, everybody seems to appreciate and like. Sometimes I get pushed back a little bit here and there, but I feel like that's the way to heal the party, is just come out with messaging that appeals to everybody and not the left-right message. That was my point, is that we got to stop the left-right messaging and get to ending the state, because that's the message that works for libertarians. The opposite of libertarian is authoritarian, right? That's the opposite. And so we want to end the authoritarian state. And it's not about the left-right stuff. There, like I said, there's plenty of people arguing that already in America. We don't need any more.
Mr. Rodriguez, you want to touch that?
Yeah, I'll just have a pretty much the same answer that I had before.
Okay.
Each state, they have their own state rights, they have their own beliefs, they have their own organizations, and so they have their own special needs associated with their communities. And so my job as president of the United States, right, would be to support those communities in a different way. And you're going to go in and you're going to be boots on the ground and you're going to connect with those people. In my opinion, if people are going to have like social media fights and social media wars, that's fine. But that's not the goal. That's not the motivations of the Libertarian Party. It's really
Mike,
stop talking.
Did they answer your question now or no? I'm sorry, Mike, did they answer your question now or no?
This particular question? I don't believe has been fully answered. I think that we've got candidates in our panel who are very much anti one caucus or the other. I think that that's too bad. I know that my campaign is above that, but it did not rise above that by disregarding the issue. We rise above it by listening to everybody in the party and working with all the caucuses. We work with leadership in each one of the states and recognize that people have differences, but we're building a team that can bring everyone together.
All right. Chrissy, do you want to take the next question?
Okay, my question sort of piggybacks off of what Larry mentioned, and I'm looking at the chat too, and I guess I would like to hear from everybody what you think the most damaging stereotype exists about libertarians or the LP that exists right now, from what you feel from, doesn't matter if they're just average people or, people within the party, but most damaging stereotype and what you would do to fix it, or can it be fixed? And I guess we could start with Lars.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. So in the online social media that I've been doing, I get a lot of messaging from people, and people have, like you said, they have a different opinion on what a libertarian is, or don't even really understand, what our message is. But I think part of that comes from this same kind of situation that you have in the left and the right. You have radicals on each side of the, you have the far left and the far right kind of a situation. And I think in the Libertarian Party, you have the same thing. You have people who want to, abolish the government. And then you have people that want to have like 6 people in the government. And so, so we need to, basically the messaging is, it can't be like super on the edges. We have to actually have a message that appeals to most Americans, because that's where people are at. And so when, our ideal might be ending taxes, abolishing all taxes, because taxation is theft. But the reality of it is that it's somewhere in the middle. I always say that politics is our ideal, but that's not what's practical. And what's practical is somewhere in the middle. And that's what we have to be aiming for. That we can say that our ideal is this, and that we want to move toward that ideal, ending the Fed, abolishing taxes, but that the reality is going to end up somewhere in the middle there. And that's what we need to be targeting.
Okay, so if you could sum it up in a couple words, Lars, most damaging stereotype.
That we're just basically too radical. That we're too radical. That we need to, we need to get our messaging more mainstream so that people agree with us and get to some level of reducing the state. Because right now the two parties are not reducing the state, and so any level of reducing the state is better than where we're at right now.
True. Okay,
Chrissy, if I may, with all due respect, I don't think that that's the right answer. The right answer is that our worst stereotype is that we're out of touch with people's problems. It just so happens in this particular presidential cycle, we should be out there with the most transformative ideas possible, because our government is going in the wrong direction. Our government is actually in the business of hurting people right now. And I do not believe that we should be out there with messaging that is in any way compromised. I think End the Fed is a great example. It may well be that some years ago, End the Fed would have been considered too radical. Not anymore. People are of a mind that they understand that inflation doesn't grow on a tree. It comes from bad monetary policy. We need to be out there explaining why ending the Fed is the right move. As a professional economist for 25 years, this is absolutely in my wheelhouse. I don't put up with this idea that ending the Fed is just, in la la land. That's the direction that we need to be headed. Maybe, it's going to take a long time and it has to be accomplished piecemeal. But telling people that we're going to fight inflation and the other parties don't care about inflation is the wrong message. We have institutional problems in our government. We need to go after them with very transformative ideas.
So the question is I'm sorry. The question was what is our biggest negative stereotype? And first, I do want to say our biggest negative stereotype is lack of empathy. It's the fact that people feel like we are too individualistic and that we don't care about other people who don't look like us, who worship like us, who sound like us. That's our biggest issue, is that people view libertarianism as some sort of individualistic, isolationist thing, when it's actually about providing liberty to each and every person, which actually is community, which is freedom, which is a kind of a communal thing. It allows people's individual trillions of individual decisions to make decisions and not government. That is what liberty is. So it's a lack of empathy, I think, is our biggest negative stereotype, in addition to the fact that some think we're Republicans who smoke weed, or we're Democrats who like guns. We're neither of those things. And as far as the Fed, messaging is important. The average American doesn't understand what the Fed is. We can say in the Fed, the average American is going to ignore what that is because they don't know what it is, and they don't have time in a 60-second soundbite to understand it. We can educate people, and that is a very important part of the party. But at this level, we need to be talking about things that they understand. Balancing the budget and combating inflation is using the language that fights central banking, but maybe in a way that the average voter understands. We all understand in the Fed because we're libertarians. The average voter is not one of us yet. We need to bring them into it, and you bring them into it speaking their language, not our language.
Yeah, the Fed goes over so many people's heads. It's like, it's not even, in my opinion, like a worthy catchphrase.
Most people think the federal government when you say in the Fed. They're like, okay, in the federal government, of course, you're a libertarian.
Okay, Joshua?
I think being out there saying we want to fight inflation ties us up with Republicans and Democrats. I wouldn't bother saying it.
And I'll just chime in and say, I don't think libertarians have any negative stereotypes. When we look at
really?
Oh, I like that. I like how Josh was thinking. We're good to go. We're good.
Okay.
When I say I'm going to abolish ICE, I get the Latinx vote. When I say I'm going to abolish police, I get the Black vote. And so when we start looking at police alternatives and the war on drugs and getting rid of the DEA, those sorts of things are coming up right now in Congress, right? Abolishing the FBI, Republicans were scared of that. I saw tweets being deleted all the time, but that's a real reality for us right now. And so there's no negative stereotype for libertarians at this point in time. People want smaller government, and that's just how it is.
There we go. Nice,
Cool.
Nice set of questions, Chrissy. That's amazing. I'm looking in the chat, and I have one I want to bring up, which is going to seem odd for some of you. But if I could, I want to direct this, if I could, to Mr. Chamath, to start with you. At what point should government be involved in education and or healthcare? Like many libertarians at the top go out totally. But looking at where we are now at this point, government is super involved in healthcare, super involved in education. So is this a point where we just abolish everything now? Do we tiptoe? Where should government be right now involved in education and in healthcare?
And it's no coincidence that those are the two businesses that are most screwed up in the United States.
Yes.
We need to not only make that point, but we need to be the North Star that says that is the direction in which we should be going. We should be getting government completely out of education and medicine, recognizing that we can't get it done by Tuesday at 3, but we need to be out there saying that's the direction that we need to go. The government got into medicine, not just through Medicaid and Medicare, which are completely abysmal, but through the tax code, inviting in a big way employer provided insurance. And that's where the barn door was open and the horses ran out. So I don't think we should be under any false pretense thinking that this is going to be easy to unravel. But neither do I believe that we should be saying things like, partial school vouchers for certain places in certain communities might be worth a thought. No, that's bullshit. All money that the federal government, the state government, and local governments raise for the purposes of education has to follow the child. And that means no matter where they go, including staying at home.
Here we go. Mr. Mapstead, you want to touch this? Where should government right now be involved in healthcare and education, recognizing that we don't want it, but it is right now completely in every aspect?
Yeah. Well, one thing is as president, you don't have a lot of control over the local level of education, but you do have control over the Department of Education, which I think we need to get rid of immediately. And that would be the first thing that I would do. As far as healthcare, it's, I have a lot of veteran friends who have fought in wars and fought overseas and have come home with debilitating problems. And to me, that's a place where the government should be helping people out. And the VA is atrocious and it doesn't do a good job. So I would be in favor of giving people choice in all aspects, in their aspects of education or in healthcare, that we need to basically have a bifocal system where that you have a choice to extract yourself from the federal government, extract yourself from the system that there is. And basically a little bit like Mike said, is the money should follow you. That you should be able to take that money and make the choices that you want to make. And part of that is that opens up the free market. When you have money and you're voting with your dollars, which education you want to provide for your child or which healthcare you want to have, that really makes the system work, because then they're competing against each other to provide you with the best care. When you have a system that is a monopoly granted by the government, you don't get anything. If you want to reduce services and raise the cost, just get government involved and you have that answer. And so, it's just, we also have this crony capitalism with healthcare where we have the government in bed with the insurance companies and mandating that, you have to have this insurance and you have to have it by this date. I mean, it just is mind-boggling, the systems that the government has built up. And we just need to free the people. We need to get government out of the people's lives and let them do what's best for them. And we still need a little bit of a safety net for those people that can't take care of themselves. And so I'm not for just completely leaving everybody out hanging dry, but, we need to reduce the state as much as possible.
I got it. Mr. Oliver.
Well, I'm a minarchist. So what should the government be doing with education and healthcare? They should be protecting people from force, fraud, and coercion and enforcing contracts and property law. That's really what the government's role is. Now, where are we at right now? We are in a much
Right.
bigger onion than that, and we have lots of layers
Yes.
to peel. And I will be in support of any legislation that begins to peel the layers away. Is it going to be incremental? And many times it will be, but can we make huge leaps forward, such as eliminating the entire DOE and block granting that all back to the states? Yeah, that's a big leap forward that we can take. But there's also incremental steps that we can take, such as deregulating insurance, such as deregulating healthcare, and starting to peel back the onion. It will take time. It might not happen in a 4 or an 8-year term of a president. It would take a long time because we didn't get here overnight. The tyranny did not just magically appear. It took many steps to get where we're at. It's going to take many steps to get us backwards. But what we have to be honest with is where the ideal is. And the ideal is getting us to a minimal government that is basically protecting you legally from force, fraud, coercion, and violence. And that's the role of government. And as I believe is a minarchist. We have anarchist friends who might believe in even less government, but until we get to that point, I think we should all be on the same train working to reduce the state in our lives. And I think that's something that we can all do together.
I love that. Is there a specific thing you want to bring up, Mr. Tremont?
Uh,
I just saw you nodding, so I thought you wanted to say something.
No, I was agreeing with Chase that it's a long haul, and it's our job to show the path and to let people know where it is that we want to get to. And he's right. Whether you're a minarchist or an anarchist, we're all going in the same direction. But I do believe the American people are ready to hear a message regarding taking a much bigger step in that direction than ever before. And so I would hate to think that we might make the mistake of suggesting to people that, we're comfortable with baby steps. If we have to, we will tolerate small steps, one at a time, but don't have to be happy about it.
Yeah, Libertarian
Mr.
president is
Rodriguez.
likely dealing with the Republican and Democratic Congress. So we're going to have to take whatever baby steps they offer until we can get Libertarians in the Congress to start making the big steps.
That very valid point. Ms. Rodriguez, you didn't touch this, please.
So with healthcare in particular, it's probably the number one concern for most people in the United States. So it's something that I'm going to be following intensely. So when you think about the FDA, if the FDA didn't exist, I think we would have a cure for HIV right now, this second. And so if we end war, we can focus on curing cancer. And so when we look at education, the school to prison pipeline, and so we have a lot of work to do. One of the things I've noticed in my community was we put the surveys out when they did the lockdowns. African Americans said they want online school. They don't want their kids in school. And so if the federal government can do anything, we can create programs to offer people opportunities to stay in school. And if they're poverty riven and they need to move to a different house because rents are going up or whatnot, they have a safe place to be in while they go try to find that affordable housing and those sorts of things. And so we need to start creating school choice alternatives. And so it's just going to be a lot of work.
There we go. Does anybody else want to touch that before we move on? Excellent. Chrissy, please take us home with our final question.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm between two of the questions in the chat. One is about ballot signatures and one is about crypto. What is the stronger feeling here?
Do the crypto, FTX. Come on, FTX is great. Do crypto.
Digital currency, seriously, yep.
Okay, let me scroll down here. Goodness. Something about, what about FTX? Did it prove that crypto is corrupt? Basically thoughts on crypto.
And please, if I can add to this, I also want to have one piece. Add also the central digital currency. Your feeling on that also.
Yes.
Did FTX destroy crypto? Is that true? Do we no longer trust it? And second, what is your view on, it looks like it's coming, but maybe not, you tell me if I'm wrong, the idea of basically a digital dollar, right?
Chrissy, you already know the answer to this. FTX was not a crypto phenomenon.
All I know is that guy really needed a haircut and he wouldn't get one. He really
does need a haircut, but not all of us can look as trim as Larry and Lars do. They just looked terrific. Look, FTX was garden variety fraud. Just because somebody steals your car doesn't mean we have a car market problem. This guy stole crypto from people, and he stole real U.S. dollars as well. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with our currency markets. Now, as far as central banking getting into digital currency, this is something that we really don't want to happen. Just another reason why we need to end the Fed, by the way. But even if a central bank gets into this, I don't believe that they'll be sufficiently sophisticated to derail the progress that's likely to be made over the next half dozen years on the blockchains on which Bitcoin and Ethereum are running. We are in the next, certainly, if I had to guess, and I usually guess wrong, so take this with a grain of salt, I would guess that in the next dozen years, we will reach critical mass in terms of our economy moving real bold into smart contracting. And at that point, everyone's going to need a blockchain strategy who's in commercial business, and the currencies are really going to take off. The big risk in currency markets is that you're going to be left on the outside when they take off. That's the bigger risk than currency markets are going to tank.
Yep. Chase.
I'll jump in there.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Oh no, you go ahead, Chase.
Hey, well, what I was going to say is two things. One, FTX, did that decrease confidence in crypto? It decreased confidence in Sam Bankman-Fried. That's what FTX did. Crypto is still strong. Crypto is still something people can invest in. It is a way for people to basically keep their money out of the hands. It creates money privacy. It's something that is a good thing. I like crypto a lot. What I want to say, though, is as far as a central bank digital currency, that's something we need to oppose 100%. That is something we need to be, if that is getting ready to be installed, that's something we need to be marching in the streets against, because that will have a major effect on the crypto market. It will have a major effect on money markets. And it is something that the government is going to try to inject itself to remove the privacy that crypto offers each and every person. You should be allowed to invest in crypto if you want to. You should be allowed to do what you want with your money, whether it's in dollars or in crypto or in gold and silver. It's yours. And I think we need to be doing everything we can to prevent the government from kind of sticking their nose into the business of the American people at every level. And that includes with our money. And you're right. This does lead to end the Fed. It ties into a lot of those things. But first, we got to introduce people to cryptocurrency. That's still something that a lot of Americans still have a lot of mysticism around. And I think if we're going to talk about it, we need to be talking about it from an educational and talk about the benefits of cryptocurrency and oppose any government crypto, so-called crypto that they want to create, digital dollars and whatnot.
Yeah. All right. Now I'll jump in there.
Yes, sir.
So the central bank digital currency, I am 100% opposed to. This is the biggest authoritarian grab that we're going to see in our entire lifetimes. The ending of cash, the ending of the ability to transact semi-autonomously and anonymously with your fellows is going to disappear with this. And this is coming very quickly. This is going to be 5 years out. This is not something that's like a long way out. And what happens is the government literally is going to know every transaction that you do with every person. And they can then limit your ability to transact with other people by simply turning on and off switches inside the computer. And we do not need government with that type of authority over our lives. That is just disgusting. Crypto is in a weird spot right now because the federal government is cracking down heavily on the crypto markets, and they are writing more and more laws to rein this in. And this, to me, is the one thing that could free us. This is the thing that gets rid of the Fed, the ability to have decentralized currency that we can transact anonymously with each other with our own free will. That's what we need. We don't need this centralized stuff. And this is the way out. So I am a full backer of cryptocurrency. I think that whether it's a solution that's there right now or one that comes up, we're going to need it. And the other thing is that China's already launched their digital currency, and Great Britain is moving quickly to launch their digital currency. So this is happening all around. And I think in the end, this is going to basically be the one world currency, and it's going to be how they basically control all of us. So I am 100% against this digital currency as a central bank digital currency. It's disgusting to me.
Here we go.
Yeah, I think the FTX operator just went viral, right? So he started a company, went viral, didn't know how to handle the money or the finances, and just ruined the whole thing. And I think it really took a big hit on crypto as a whole. People just don't have a trust in crypto anymore. As far as digital currency, I know that government's operating quantum computers. I know they're building algorithms to search through every single bank account now. regardless of if there's digital currency. But I'm a big component of privacy and encryption. And so this is another talking point for libertarians to go around and preach to people, hey, you hire a libertarian, you're going to get encryption, you're going to get privacy back. The digital dollar could work, but it needs to be encrypted. The government shouldn't be meddling in your private finances anyway. They're already taking money out of your paychecks. And so if they're looking for drug money, well, guess what? Libertarians are going to abolish the DEA. We're going to end the war on drugs. And so those things are not the government's concern. And so it's just another reason to hire a libertarian for president of the United States.
There we go, hiring libertarians. Well, guys, I want to say these questions have been amazing. Before I go, we're going to go on to closing statements. But before we do that, let me do a little bit of housekeeping if I could. For those of you who like what you saw and like what you're about to see in our final wrap up, please click that like button. It does matter for all of us. Do that. Yes, we're in social media. It does matter. Click the like button. If you haven't clicked the like button, something is physically wrong with you. This was an awesome, but I haven't done it. It's already awesome. So click that like button. It does matter. If you happen to be watching this on Twitter, please retweet this right now. Just hit retweet. Let people know what's happening so people can see this and look at this. It does matter. If you are new to libertarians, because you came here because it looked cool, because you saw some good-looking people, that's awesome, then support the people who sponsor this show and who sponsor this. It's the Advocates for Self-Government, the Advocates for Self-Government, theadvocates.org. Head on over there, check their surveys out. They do surveys. All the questions we talked about, all the surveys are there. Check those surveys out. They're all free. Take one of the surveys, share the results. It supports what we're doing now. It supports the Advocates for Self-Government. It's a nonprofit. It's totally free, and it supports this channel. So please do that if you can. The last thing I want to realize is support the people who showed up today. Go check them out on Twitter. Right there, Libertarian Lars, Chase for Liberty, Joshua, is it Jared? And Termat Mike, right? Any of those, please check them out. All the descriptions, all their details and descriptions, if you want to check them out. And lastly, Chrissy came today. Check out Chrissie Mayr, please. Go check out her website. She is actually touring coming up here. It's Chrissy as in CHRISSIE, if you're listening, and MAYR, Chrissie Mayr. Yes, Mayor for Mayor. So I now want to head off, if I could, and then take the closing statements. We could 2-minute closing statements. We'll start with Mr. Oliver and then go to Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Termat, and then Mr. Mapstead will take us home. Mr. Oliver, as soon as you're ready.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Larry and Chrissy, for hosting this forum. It was a great event. I really enjoyed getting to hear from the other candidates and having this discourse. That's what's healthy in a political party, is to have that healthy and respectful discourse. My name is Chase Oliver. My website is votechaseoliver.com. I encourage you to check it out and see my policy positions, as well as my full State of the Union response that I prepared to combat Biden's BS and lies that he threw out. I'm somebody who wants to bring energy and enthusiasm back to the Libertarian Party. I want to be somebody who's going to get out and fight for those Gen Z votes so we have a next generation of libertarian activists and voters. I'm somebody who wants to bring professionalism to the race, and I'm somebody who wants to contrast the octogenarians who are running the two-party system with somebody who's under 40. Because the truth is it's about time for our generation to start having some say in things, because we are the generation that's going to be most affected by the decisions that government is making today. So we are the generation that should be making the decisions that government is making today. I want to fight for each and every one of you to be the best individual you can be, and so that you can live your life authentically as yourself in peace. And I want to be somebody who's going to be pushing that message in all 50 states vigorously, so that we can have a true libertarian message break through the two-party static. Again, thank you to each and every, to Larry and Chrissy, to each and every one of you who are watching this. I encourage you again to go to my website, votechaseoliver.com, and check out the policies. And in the meantime, I'm going to be traveling across the country. If you are at a libertarian convention or a libertarian event, there's a good chance I'm probably going to be there in the next few months. So I encourage you to come out, say hello. I'd love to shake your hand, hear from you, and hear your feedback about what we need in 2024, because all of us together are going to have to work for a more free and prosperous world, and we're going to have to do it together. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Rodriguez, please, 2 minutes as soon as you're ready.
Yep. Thank Larry. Thank Chrissy for having me today. I just want to tell people to go out to find my website, Joshua for Unity. That's joshuaforunity.com. Read my bio, peruse my platform, go to my social medias and give me a follow. I I have a passion for community. I always have it. I think most millennials do. I've been active in my community for a long time, and so I have experience with social issues, housing, healthcare. And as a scientist, I'm preparing myself for the next generation of workforce. And I know in our communities we have a lot of young people that don't really take interest in the trades, and now we're having a lack of a workforce being able to build us affordable housing, those sorts of issues. When you look at what the future holds for us, we have a population of young people that are dying by suicide. One of the highest rates of youth gun violence in our communities, that is just a sheer epidemic. We have entry rates for college kids at the lowest rates. College graduation rates are the lowest. High school graduation rates are the lowest. So we do have a lot of issues. I've been boots on the ground for a very long time. I've been knocking on doors, campaigning for local candidates. So I know what it takes. I've been going to those community meetings and I've been listening. And so I have a vision to move us forward. And I'd be if elected president of the United States, I would be the youngest president in United States history. And so I'm representing the millennial generation, and I want to move us forward in a new way and a new vision.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I appreciate it. Mr. Maat, as soon as you're ready, please go ahead.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Chrissy. Look, my campaign does represent a stark departure from what has represented us in the Libertarian Party in the past. This campaign has the credibility to interest voters who are used to tuning out because our candidates have been irrelevant. This campaign is built on a platform of the most transformative ideas. Check it out at goldnewdeal.org. And I personally have the background to back up those transformative ideas with real world, realistic solutions. We've already begun building the team that's going to make executing on this plan possible, because we believe in 2024, we have more than just an opportunity. We have an obligation as libertarians. We believe that this is an obligation because the U.S. government is not going in the right direction. This is a government that hurts people. This government hurts people who are frankly ripped off by government spending, taxation, inflation. This government hurts people who are trapped in intergenerational poverty, robbed of opportunity, even robbed of aspiration by bad public school systems, bad housing policy, bad welfare programs. This government hurts people also who are undermined by the world's most oppressive criminal justice system, operating in concert with an insanely counterproductive war on drugs. And this government hurts people who are robbed by a war machine that steals our resources, too often steals our very lives. And to be honest, robs us even of our dignity, in the sense that this war machine fails to adhere to our most basic values of peace and the pursuit of prosperity. For these reasons, I believe we have an obligation to put our best foot forward to the American people. I believe my campaign represents our best opportunity to do that. And as for the people of Kentucky, put your seatbelt on, because I'm coming for you. I'll see you Saturday.
Wow, right at 2 minutes. Well done, Mr. Maat. Appreciate that. Yes. Great. Mr. Mapstead, please take us home.
All right. Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Chrissy, and the other candidates that we have here today. It's been a really great little forum here. I just want to reiterate the things that I talked about earlier, which is that I want to grow the party by activating the Lars 24 challenge. I want to help with fundraising, and I want to support our local candidates. Those are three important things to me. The other things that I didn't get a chance to talk about in here is that I look at three different reforms that I really want to push, and that's economic reform, tax reform, and voting reform. Those are three important things. And I'm a big proponent of the fair tax. We didn't get to talk about that, but I want to change the tax system. I want to get the tax system away from this forced system where the government is authoritarian and can put you in jail for messing up on your tax forms. I want to make it super simple. I want everybody to understand that it's how it works and that it's fair for everybody, so that we don't have people pissed off. Everybody's pissed off at the tax system, and I want to change that. The voting system is completely broken. Everyone's pissed off at the voting system. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. Your people are pissed off. Some people think it's stolen. Some people think people are suppressed, and it's both. The libertarians get their ballot access taken away. There's awful gerrymandering. There's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up and fixed in the voting system. And finally, I am a big proponent of term limits and ranked choice voting. I think those are two huge things that could change the landscape for everybody and make the whole system work better for all Americans. I want to make the system work for all Americans, not just a few individuals, not the rich and the corporations, but everybody. And in order to do that, we have to level the playing field and create opportunities for everyone. Again, I'm Lars Mapstead, and support me as your presidential candidate, and I'll put Libertarians on the map, winning an electoral vote in 2024.
Nicely done. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming today. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was interesting. And we will be doing more of these in the future. Everyone, have a great night. I will see you all very soon.